Hi and welcome to another DIY video project. This is something I built a while back and I didn't know the value of it until I had it, to be honest with you. It's something I've wanted for a long time as a compressor, and they are very handy to have. And again, a bit like the bench sander that video that I made back before this one, and you can check it out up here, the link. I decided to build it rather than buy one. With a lot of research on the internet and YouTube and that, I came across a lot of variations, something similar to the bench sander. But one struck me, and it was based on using a gas cylinder, an empty gas cylinder. That is a typical gas cylinder that you'd use for cooking or anything like that on a cooker. And I forget what capacity it is. I suppose it's 25 litre minimum anyway. The other thing I needed then was the compressor pump from fridge freezer. I got this for nothing. I got the cylinder for nothing, and I got this little handle that's on it for nothing as well, and the wheels. So I pretty much got everything for nothing. The only thing that I did have to buy was the actual pressure switch and the regulator gauges and a few little bits of fittings here, and other than that it was pretty much a freebie. The pressure gauge and regulator and water capture device and the actual hose fitting here and a little valve on it, all that, I think it was €30 or something like that on Amazon. You'll get them on eBay, you'll get them on Banggood. They're widely available, there's no problem with them at all. This I got from a company in my local town that sell fridge freezers and washing machines, and they actually recycle them. So I just asked them, could I take one of these out of a fridge freezer that was already there, ready for recycle, and they said, yeah, belt away, and that was fine. Now, rather, again, like the disc sander one, rather than going through the whole build process of it, I'm going to basically go through the pros and cons, things to watch out for, hopefully give you guidelines and help and that if you do decide to build one yourself. So let's start with the actual cylinder here. Things you have to be careful with these is, even if you have one lying around and it's empty and it has been lying around for years, don't assume that it's safe to start running angle grinders and welders and all that without completely making sure that it's empty, because there will be a residual amount of gas left in the cylinder, and it will stay there for years and years. So the whole secret is to take off the main valve at the front here. Now this guy is going to be extremely tight, and as you can imagine it has to be, because it's holding back all the gas to work on your cooker's regulator or whatever, gas fire heater or whatever you're using it on. So you're going to need to jam this some way. I used the handles and a piece of metal, and I jammed it to the ground that I could get a Stilson or a pipe wrench in on that, and with an extension bar on the handle I could twist it off it. When you get it off it, this is the best way to be 100% certain that it's empty, and that is to fill it with water. And I can't stress that half enough. fill it with water, empty it out, and you will get a lot of gas, smell and odour flying around. Don't panic. Do it outside, and as I say, fill it to the brim or overflowing, and then empty it, and then fill it again, and maybe do it 2 or 3 times, just to be 100% certain. When you have that done, screw back in the regulator valve again here at the front, and tighten it and put PTFE tape on it and tighten it back in. That's the tank sealed. Okay. Now the only other thing you need to worry about then is to get all these items to work on it. You're going to have to bore 3 holes minimum. I've seen guys get away with less, but 3 is kind of the average. Okay, so you're going to need one down here at the very bottom at the back, and that allows every now and again for you to drain the system of any water, vapours or residues or anything like that that might build up on it, and you can empty it from here. Okay. The other hole then will be for on the side of it, and in my case up at the front there, to take the regulator and pressure switch and all that. And this part here is for the valve. This is a check valve. Nearly forgot the name of it. So check valve is very important. You're going to need it. The reason for a check valve is when the regulator or the pump pumps the air through into the cylinder, and when the pressure switch switches it off, when it reaches the desired pressure that you have it set for, the problem is you're going to have an awful lot of pressure on the piston of your pump, back pressure from the cylinder, if you don't have a check valve. The idea of the check valve is the air comes out of your compressor down in here and it into the cylinder, and it's opening and closing a little spring-loaded valve here at the back of it, right? And that's allowing the air in, and it also allows it up this pipe here. Now the idea is that when the pump stops, this guy closes and won't let any air out of the cylinder into this pipe here to create back pressure. And what it does is this guy, the regulator switch, allows it to blow off the pressure via this pipe here. Any pressure that is in this section here and down and up to the pressure switch, it'll actually allow it to blow it off. And that way then, when the pressure drops down below a certain level and the pump kicks back in again, it will have no pressure on the piston, and it'll be able to run freely and start filling the cylinder again. Now, I've seen several methods for putting these check valves on. I've seen some drill these and thread them and screw the check valve directly into the sidewall of the cylinder. I didn't do that because I don't think the sidewall is heavy enough. So what I did do was I welded on 20mm fittings, plumbing fittings, and I got a friend of mine actually to weld them on. Pat Harty at Lone Autos did it for me. I think his brother did it, and he welded them on to get a good solid firm weld, and then it's those that I'm screwing the check valve and the pressure gauge and all that into. So this here is the pressure switch, and it's on the regulator. This is the regulator here, and it has a pressure gauge attached to it, and the pressure switch has another pressure gauge. Now, as I said, this whole unit here, this kit, or comes as a kit with this hose and the little stop valve as well. So all that comes as a kit on Amazon, Banggood, eBay, you name it, you'll get them no problem. I put the big one to tell me the pressure that's in the cylinder, and I put the small one then on the regulator, and by turning this you can vary the pressure coming out here. That's what the regulator is for. So even though you might have 90 or 100 psi in the tank, you can regulate it by turning this here to the desired pressure that you want. And then you have your stop valve here for opening and closing it whenever you need to use it. And of course these are quick release units as well. So all very handy and very easy to use. The pressure switch is regulated inside. You actually take off this cover. I'll actually show you how it's done. I'll just get a screwdriver here and we take it off. Right, very simple. So you have your wiring from the motor coming in, and it's a double pole switch, and it's spring loaded here, and it's this nut here that you turn one way or the other, right or left. It's written on a positive and plus and minus. So the more to the plus you go, the higher the pressure is going to go before this cuts out. So you keep turning it with the system running until you get it to the desired level that you want it to cut out at. In my case, I have it cutting out at 90 psi. And basically all it does is it flicks the switch, and the mains is coming in this side, and the motor is coming in, is being fed from the other side of the switch, and this guy controls the switch, and here's your two earth leads here. Make sure everything is safe electrically. Now the other thing you're going to need is one of these here, and this is a pressure release valve. If the system, let's say this fails and it doesn't cut out and the pressure keeps building and you're not here to keep an eye on it, well then this guy here will release. I think after 120 psi or 100 psi or something like that it's set for. But again, you can set these. And if you want to drain the system after you're finished, you just pull that ring there and it will allow the air out as well at a controlled level. So that's part of your safety, and safety is a must with these things because you are dealing with a very, very high pressure. So you have to be sure that it has safety features, and that you're not running yourself at risk of explosion, because it's like a time bomb sitting there waiting if things aren't set properly on it. To mount the actual pump, when I took it out of the fridge freezer, it was attached to a plate, something similar to that guy there. But that's actually part of it. It would have been like that, right? So I just cut it and mounted the pump back onto the area that it was attached to on this plate, and then welded the plate to the top of the tank, and then put these little flat plates here to support, because these pumps, they are fairly heavy, and I have rubber bushings under it then to minimize vibrations and things like that. So it's basically sitting there as it would be if it was in a fridge freezer, and it's very secure. There's no problem with it at all. The handle is just it came from I think it's one of these little manure spreader or seed spreader things that you'd run around the garden, hand operated thing, and it broke, and this is the handle from it. And the wheels actually that I'm using on it down here, I'll show them in a second, they came from the same thing as well. And I basically just got pipe insulation for the top and wrapped it in black electrical tape to give it a nice soft sort of grip. And then I bored a hole in one side of it here, and put what we call a gutter bolt through. It's about 2.5 inches long, and that created then a handle so as that I can hang my units on it like so. The pump itself has 3 pipes coming out of it. This one here and these 2 here. Now this one is for oil filling, because there is oil in this pump, and this one here is your air output to your cylinder via your check valve, and this one here is the air intake. Now what I did to filter the air was I had an old pressure gauge that failed on me, so I basically took out the guts of it and used the housing and put little holes on the glass and put a spongy, foamy guy inside in it, so that it's creating some level of filter rather than just sucking air directly in on an open pipe and allowing dust and God knows what else to get in there. When it comes to the actual copper pipe, this is a little tip I can give you when it comes to bending copper pipe. This is the type of pipe that's used on your oil tank for your heating, house heating, and it normally has white plastic insulation over it, but I cut that off, and to bend the pipe what I did was I cut off a piece longer than I actually needed, and because I don't have any bending machine of any kind, I had to find some way of doing it, and the best way to do it is close off one end. When it's a piece of straight pipe, close off one end with the pliers, fill it with salt or fine sand, and then close off the other end with the pliers, and then start gently bending it and heat it as well, and that will help, and it'll allow it to be more pliable, and as a result, because of the salt inside, it'll maintain the shape and you won't have any kinks or dents in the copper itself, and you'll have a free flow of air into your check valve. Now when it comes to these guys here, this hose and the fittings that's on it, I am finding it difficult to get fittings for that, but I managed to buy a complete kit of 18 pieces, all variations that work with this particular fitting, and the problem is that when you buy the likes of this guy, the actual fitting that's on it won't work directly. What I did do was I actually took the shoulder off this fitting that was sticking out and ground it down round that it would slide into the thread ended on this one inside, and then just run solder all around it, and ended up then joining the two together like that, and just cover it with black electrical tape to give it a bit of a clean and decent look. But that's my workaround as regards getting these fittings to work. It was the same then when I bought this guy in. It's a Parkside little blow gun as well, and again the fitting on it wouldn't work with my connection style, so again I had to grind it down and get that I could basically push this one when I was ground down and nice and round, and it would fit into the hole on this one, and I pressed the two of them together tightly and soldered it, and then wrapped insulating tape or electrical tape around it again. So that's the way I work around these issues. I didn't have that problem when it came to my spray gun, paint spraying gun, because the fitting on it screwed directly into my regulator. You have to have a regulator with a spray gun. You can't just run it direct, because whatever's coming out here, you want to make sure that you're getting an exact measurement here at the gun when the trigger is pulled. not when it's closed. So when you pull the trigger, this regulator must read the desired pressure, and if you're paint spraying, say, a car, that could be talking about 28 psi or 30 psi. So that's why you have to have a regulator. Then, because the regulator, this fitting, which is this one here, just screwed directly into it, and there was no problem. Okay, so that then connects directly to the actual hose itself. I bought a thing for inflating tires, pressure gauge. Again, this was in Lidl. It came with as a kit, $9.99, and yeah, it's cool. It works very well. But again, the fitting here was a different style, so I did the same trick. I just ground it down that it would slide into this one, and press the two of them together very tightly, and then solder all around it to seal it, and then black electrical tape again to tighten it all up. So this is, I'll try and give you a close-up of a check valve. I don't know if you can see that in there, just in at the back. There's a little plastic. I'll try and get the light on it as best I can. There's a little plastic guy, and it's spring-loaded with this backing here. And when the air comes in via here, it's able to push that guy back and against the spring, and allow the air then to pass through here and up here. But then when the pump stops, this guy closes, and it stops the air from here, which would be the tank side, right? It'd be this side. It stops that from creating a back pressure on this one here. And then all your pressure switch has to do then is release the air out of here, and that also releases it out of this one here. So it takes the pressure off the actual piston of the pump, and that would then, when it needs to start again, there's no pressure and it's able to work away, no problem. So you definitely need one of them. This is the pressure release valve, as I was showing you earlier, and again, if it gets too high, this guy will allow it to blow it off and maintain safety. So that's definitely required. I have an extra one just for safety reasons. In case one fails, I can swap it over very easily. All a kind of a standard fitting. The gauges then come in various different guises and sizes and shapes, and they basically just have a little square shoulder lad with thread on it and PTFE tape, and turn it into the actual fitting and tighten it. The square shoulder here allows you to put a spanner on it and tighten it into the actual pressure switch up here, and or your regulator. Now the burning question is it any good? Can you spray with it? Well, I'm going to show you a clip of me actually spraying, paint spraying, and there's no actual problem at all. And I'll show you with inflating tires, and there's absolutely no hassle at all using it. Now I'm going to inflate a tire here as well, but before I switch the compressor on, I just want to make another little point of mention to you. This red button here on top of the pressure switch, if that's pushed down, it means the compressor is off, and regardless what pressure or none is in the tank, it remains off even though it's plugged in. in order to get it to work, you have to pull it up. And so I will do that. And there you go. It's running, and it's as quiet as a fridge. And that's the beauty of this setup, because in the workshop then you don't even know it's running. Now it takes, with my setup here, it takes approximately 7 minutes from completely empty to 90 psi. We let it charge up, and then I'll show you me swapping out the blowgun for tire inflator type gauge, and we'll pump that wheel over there. So there you go, 7 minutes approximately. Now if I take our blowgun here, and it's off at the minute, so if I turn on the valve here, and now we have, okay, so it's running. Now if I pop this, you can hear it's just a pop, and then I put my tire inflator onto it like so. So you pull back on the shoulder, push it in, and we're ready to go. If I measure the pressure in the tire here, it's reading at approximately, we have about, I don't know, less than 20 psi, 18 psi in it. So we'll hit it with the pressure. There we go. There's 20. 22. 28. There's 30 psi, just like that. So it is pretty quick. And as regards pumping tires, you could pump 3 or 4 tires before the pump will kick back in again. So absolutely no problem. If you want to let it release pressure, press the little button on the side of it there with my thumb, bring it back down, bring it up to 30 again. There you go. So that's how quick it is. So there you go, folks. Very useful thing to have. Very easy build. If you're into DIY at all, it shouldn't present any great problems to you at all. It's only a matter of getting the individual items and assembling it. So I think I've covered pretty much everything. Oh wait, now there is one thing. I did mention that there is oil in the pump here. So it is a good idea to change that oil every now and again. Now I haven't done it yet on mine, but I intend on doing it. And what you'd have to do is open this little pipe here that's sealed. Open it and drain out the oil out of it. Now I wouldn't recommend putting the same oil back into it again as was already in it. It's a special oil for these guys that can mix with the Freon gas inside in your fridge, and it circulates around and it comes back to the pump, and that's why it never actually runs out. So that's fine. It's a kind of a sealed unit. But in the case of this setup here, the oil is actually slowly coming out here via the air outlet and into the cylinder. So that's why you have to check it and make sure and top it up from time to time. Now in my research and that, I've heard all different arguments and debates about what oil to use, and the conclusion I can kind of come to is pretty much any oil, any good engine oil 10W40 or 10W30 or something like that would definitely be good enough. And depending on the size of the pump will determine how much oil you'd have to put in. And I think if it's a 350 watt or something like that, you put, or 150 watts, you have to put 350 milliliters of oil into it. Don't quote me on those figures, but there are YouTube videos out there on how much oil you need to put in the pump depending on the size and I think it's down to the wattage of the actual pump and how much you'd have to put into it. So there you go. Uh, a nice project, definitely useful. Whether it would you work with, say, impact drivers and sanders and things like that, the pneumatic type, it would work a nail gun, and that's something I will buy is a nail gun. But other things like impact wrenches and that, not sure. I may test it out sometime and see and come back to you on it. So there you go. Hope this was of use to you. I hope you liked it. Leave comments down below. If you have any questions or anything like that, please ask and I'll answer them as best I can. And that's it until the next one. So to those of you that have subscribed, thank you very much. For those that haven't, please do. And give it an all like and a thumbs up. It all helps. And I'll see you in the next one. So take care. Bye bye for now.